Welcome back. Over the last several weeks, there has been a visible and deeply troubling escalation of anti-Semitism among some of the most prominent right-wing podcasters and media figures in our country. This isn't about policy disagreement over Israel. It's not whether somebody's too pro-Israel or too anti-Israel, and it's not about ordinary political debate. What we're watching instead is something far more specific and far more dangerous. Anti-Semitic language is being normalized. Open anti-Semites are being tolerated, and Jewish voices who are objecting are being dismissed, diminished, or treated as illegitimate. To understand how this happened, you have to look at the pattern. Not any one person is in isolation. Let's start with Candace Owen, because with her, the ambiguity is gone. I even did a video a few weeks ago where Ben called her out at TPUSA and it got her angry, and she did that video. So this is no longer just asking questions with her. It's no longer a careless phrasing, and it's no longer a defensible disagreement. Candace is no longer arguing policy. She's attacking people, and specifically Ben. But he's not alone. And she is doing so using narratives that have existed in anti-Semitic movements for more than a century. She's not rebutting Ben Shapiro's arguments. She's questioning his legitimacy. She's framing him not as somebody who is wrong, but as somebody who should not be listened to at all. That distinction matters, because when criticism shifts from what someone believes to why that person should not have a voice, anti-Semitism stops being theoretical and becomes operational. When she does what she said, when she does this, she often expands her comments to say all Jews by saying his people or these people. This is making it clear she thinks this about all Jews.
Because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there. And then, but it was just convenient for Israel that JFK got shot. It was just convenient, you guys. Totally convenient. It was convenient for Israel, by the way, when the towers went down.
I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like 1000% blame the Zionists. Like let that be my partying.
Now contrast that with the approach taken by Tucker Carlson. Tucker does not shout. He doesn't rage. He does not explicitly announce anti-Semitism. Instead, he dismisses. We see this technique repeatedly from him. When Tucker encounters internal critics, he doesn't engage their arguments. He teaches his audience who to roll their eyes at. He does this with figures like Dave Rubin. He does it again and more consequentially with Ben Shapiro. He just did it recently at TPUSA, and I'll be showing you that later. When Tucker denies anti-Semitism and then almost immediately minimizes Israel, describing it as tiny and irrelevant or not worth caring about, he's doing something very specific. He is redefining anti-Semitism so narrowly that almost nothing qualifies. And then he's signaling that Jewish concerns do not matter. This is not disagreement. He is delegitimizing people, Jewish people, and their concerns instead. And when someone with Tucker's audience does this, it shapes how millions of people interpret what is acceptable and what is not.
I really thought that the impulse to deplatform people, or even to use the word platform as a verb, which it's not, it's a noun, don't steal my nouns, deplatform and denounce. Why haven't you denounced somebody else? The whole like Red Guard cultural revolution thing that we so hated and feared on the left that we did everything we could to usher in a new time where you could have an actual debate. I mean, this kind of was the whole point of Charlie Kirk's public life. And I think that he died for it. I really believe that. And I know a lot about it because the last several months of Charlie's life were devoted in part to arguing about this event, in fact, this speech, in fact, my speech here.
Anyway, that was clearly a shot at Ben Shapiro and about deplatforming and calling him out. And you can see he's doing exactly what Ben was doing, except for he won't have the conversation. Ben wants to have the conversation. Tucker says he'll have the conversation, but then he minimizes anybody and won't actually sit down and have that conversation with him. That's the difference, and that's the problem. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about boundaries, the ones this movement claims to have. Nick Fuentes is an open anti-Semite. He talks explicitly about the Jews. There's no subtlety and no ambiguity. Because of that, he is formally excluded from events like AmeriFest at TPUSA. Security escorted him out and statements were issued. That is the official red line. He was kicked off of YouTube and he can't be let back on. He's here.
It's because Israel controls this event. This is America first. It's because Israel.
That, folks, that little twerp, that little gay boy, and I'm gay, so I don't care if he is or not, but he denies it, and I believe he is who these young kids are looking at and who they're following. And his team is building. His Graper movement is getting bigger every day, and it's scary. It's very scary with what he espouses and what he has going on, and his anti-Semitism that he's spreading like crazy and normalizing like crazy. It's not good, and he's not a good guy. So he is only on Rumble right now. But now look what happens immediately after. Another known anti-Semite, Myron Gaines, appears publicly wearing a Holocaust referenced imagery. He's wearing a hoodie with actually Nick Fuentes' idea about the ovens and cookies. It's really disgusting. There's no nuance here. There's no plausible misunderstanding. There's no charitable interpretation of what he was wearing. And yet he's not excluded. The day before, he and his video partner were thrown out over something his partner had said, not him. And the next morning, when they came back, they were let in, and Jack Prosopiak made sure apologies were issued on TPUSA's behalf, and Gaines was allowed in wearing this vile anti-Semitic Holocaust hoodie. It's just terrible. If you're a novelist, you couldn't write this crazy stuff. That moment tells you exactly where the real boundaries are. It's not anti-Semitism. It is an inconvenience. And that is a moral collapse. Throughout all of this, Ben Shapiro is doing something very specific. Look, I understand he can be annoying. He's like the know-it-all smart kid in school that everyone found annoying, but was really smart and passed all the tests, and you knew he was right. But in fact, he is really smart, and he's a very moral man who is trying to do what's right when no one else seems to be. He's not attacking the right. He is not abandoning the movement, and he is not calling for censorship or cancellation. He is warning repeatedly that anti-Semitism is being normalized, that it's dangerous, and that the right should stop it in its tracks. The conservative movement is in serious danger, Shapiro said, from charlatans who claim to speak at the name of principle, but actually traffic in conspiracism and dishonesty. And we know that's true. Ben's the only one calling this out, and he's the one that's being canceled. And it's important to pause here because the familiar defense always appears at this point. People say, this isn't about the Jews. This is about Israel, or this is about Zionists. But that argument collapses the moment you look at who is included and who is not. Take Dave Smith, take Glenn Greenwald. Both are Jewish. Both are relentlessly hostile to Israel and to Netanyahu, especially Glenn Greenwald. They attack Israel constantly. They criticize Zionism openly, yet they are fully embraced by the same group we are talking about here. Just look at Megan's gushing tweets this week about them. They are liked, they are welcome, and they are treated as legitimate voices. And here is what's striking. You will never hear either of them defend other Jews. You will never hear them say anything positive about Jewish identity itself. You will never hear them invoke Jewish ethics, Jewish history, or Jewish teachings in a way that affirms Jewish peoplehood. One might reasonably expect that even someone deeply critical of Israel might occasionally say something like, Jewish tradition teaches us the importance of human dignity, or as Jews, we understand the dangers of collective blame. But you never hear that from them. It never happens. And yet they remain fully included. So this is not about being Jewish, and it's not about criticizing Israel. It's about which Jews are allowed to speak and which Jews are the problem. Ben Shapiro is not being marginalized because he's pro-Israel. He's being marginalized because he insists that anti-Semitism itself must be a red line in the conservative movement. And what matters most is not just what Ben says, but how others respond. They do not rebuke his arguments. You don't hear Tucker or anybody rebuting anything he's saying about Israel or anything, even about the movement itself. They do not engage the substance. They do not say, here is where Ben is wrong. Instead, they diminish him. They mock him. They treat him as controlling, as annoying, as someone who needs to be put in his place. And one note of transparency here. Several of the clips you are seeing were originally compiled by Ben himself in a video responding to Tucker Carlson. I actually showed you this video a while ago. I'm not using the materials because they belong to him, but because he had already gathered some of the same public statements that I was going to look and gather for that matter this conversation. And quite frankly, it saved me a lot of time because he had already put it together exactly what I was looking for. So anyway, these are not Ben's claims, and they are the words and actions of the people involved. And that brings us to Megyn Kelly. When Ben criticized elements of the conservative movement ecosystem, including Tucker, Megyn did not engage the substance of the concern. Ben at TPUSA did criticize Candace, did criticize Tucker, and did criticize Megyn Kelly, who he still felt is a friend. But she's questioning his standing. She's framing his warning not as legitimate alarm, but as an attempt to control the movement. She publicly suggested that Ben believes he has the power to decide who belongs and who does not. This is not disagreement. This is delegitimization. She went further. She argued that those warning about anti-Semitism themselves are creating anti-Semites while explicitly defending Tucker from that same charge. Notice what happened there. The person raising the alarm became the problem. The behavior warned about became secondary, and the anti-Semitism itself was minimized. All right. So as you saw, he went out after Megyn Kelly, and Megyn Kelly was not too pleased about it this week. And she came out with a few tweets and things after. I mean, that was a month ago, or the 18th or whatever. Not a month ago, a couple weeks ago. But here we go. Oh, I hate these. Can't stand these things. God darn it. Okay, here we go. Anyway, there was a great article in Vanity Fair that talked about Megyn Kelly talks Ben Shapiro's betrayal, and she calls it a betrayal, and the MAGA reckoning at America Fest. At America Fest convened the likes of Erica Kirk, Tucker Carlson, Kelly, Shapiro, and other conservative stars. MAGA was anything but united. And Megyn Kelly had no idea that Ben Shapiro planned to go after her when he launched into that scathing broadside against what he called charlatans and grifters in the conservative movement on the first night of Turning Point's annual conference last week. His inclusion of Kelly shocked the commentator who has long considered Ben Shapiro a friend. I was flabbergasted, she told me, soon after stepping off the same stage, where her searing response to Shapiro was rapturously received by the crowd. I thought, who do you think you are? When more than 90,000 people gathered in a stadium in Arizona for Charlie Kirk's funeral in September, speakers at the pyrotechnic infused was a new dawn for politics. The college, Now step back and look at the pattern. The explicit anti-Semite is excluded, but only when it's convenient. The implicit anti-Semitism is normalized. Holocaust imagery is tolerated, And the Jewish voice saying this is wrong is treated as the disruptor. This isn't accidental. This is not coincidence. This is a system enforcing its priorities. And if you think this does not matter in real world Republican politics, you are very mistaken. Movements are defined not by just who they include, but by who they silence. When anti-Semitism becomes something you can joke about, dismiss, or excuse, and objecting to it makes you the villain, the moral structure has already collapsed. This isn't about Israel. It's about whether anti-Semitism is a red line in this country or merely an inconvenience. And right now, the answer is becoming painfully and scarily clear. Thank you for watching.
So I want to thank you for
watching.
Like and subscribe.
Please like and
subscribe to this video.
Number of subscribers in the last month. I really appreciate it. Thank you, people. And I hope everybody watching will
thank you for
subscribe
watching.
as I continue
Please like and
into the new
subscribe
year
to this video
with new videos on anti-Semitism, on the new Trump anti-trans thing that's coming, because I do not support transing children. Adults can do what they want, but I'm very against this whole movement that involves children. So I will be concentrating on that. And I want to talk about politics as we head into this year. We're having an election later in the year, and I think we've got a lot of mess in both sides, and I think the dialogue needs to change, and we'll be addressing that, and hopefully we'll have a dialogue between you and I. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.